Greetings Exiles, BullShifter here, back with the latest in our ongoing Let's Play episode, episode 8. As you can see, here we are in chapter 8, and we're going to go ahead and finish up this chapter tonight, and hopefully get a little bit further even. So first I'm actually going to switch over here. And I believe, yeah, we just freshly started Chapter 8, so I want to go ahead and head into here. And I did go ahead and switch up a few things while I was off. Added a few different skill gems that should end up helping us out. And actually, for whatever reason, we only have one of our spirits summoned right now. Let me fix that real quick, though. Let's see. So it looks like there's a Carnage Chieftain corpse in there. Maybe, oh, yep, there was. It's a little difficult to aim this thing. There we go. Now we've got both. Hey there, how's it going tonight? And we're going to want to go ahead and switch back to our Summon Holy Relic. I also went ahead and switched up our movement skill as well. Reasoning behind that is we're going to try and assign elemental equilibrium to this character. We'll actually do that the next time that we level up, which will greatly increase the damage of our zombies since as you can see there, we're applying cold damage to our minions currently. So every time we do our charge dash here with electricity, it's going to essentially lower the resistance of all of our enemies' cold damage. So our zombies will do even more damage. Should be a nice little buff for us. And we shouldn't be too far away, actually. And we actually just made a big old circle. The one thing that is kind of unfortunate about this travel skill is the fact that we have to charge it. However, we don't have a limited amount of charges like we did with Flame Dash, and we have a little bit of control over where we end up teleporting to. So there's kind of some advantages and some disadvantages there. But overall, this will definitely be more beneficial than not. Granted, we could also use Flame Dash, but it's just easier to apply all of this electricity damage. And we can also teleport through things this way. Makes things a little bit easier in that regard also. I did change up my gear a little bit also. I got rid of that unique weapon that we were using and went ahead and crafted a gold item. Not necessarily anything that is a lot more useful, but it had more gem sockets in it since the item we were using was such low level. That's the one disadvantage to using lower level uniques. Granted, they'll still have the same potential stats, but if the gear is too low, you can't roll more sockets on it, so you can't get that maximum amount of sockets, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's kind of the trade-off of being able to equip an item that's that good that early. So our exit's coming out up here. I would honestly just take a look at PoE Ninja. Just PoE.ninja. I honestly am not really good at knowing the actual value of items off the top of my head. The one thing I will say, PoE Ninja is based off of PC prices. So honestly, when it comes down to it, what I think is a fair exchange rate is, it's kind of hard to say, but I would say potentially if it's 3 times more than what it costs on PC, with the current rates of the PS4 market, I don't think you're getting ripped off. I think that's, I wouldn't say fair, but I mean, I guess I'd say fair. That's about as close to a fair price as you're going to get currently. It does kind of differ, like currency rates are actually a little better in some regards on PS4 than on PC, but most of the items are, you know, quite a bit higher than they are on PC. They're pretty inflated. Hey, how's it going tonight? Just looking forward to hitting this next level here so we can apply that elemental equilibrium. And then our minions are going to start doing a ton of damage. They're actually not doing too bad right now as it is. I did get rid of Summon Raging Spirits in order to basically replace that with Charge Dash. The reasoning behind it is with Elemental Equilibrium, granted, if we're, you know, alternating our Charge Dash and our Raging Spirits, it would essentially buff each attack if we alternated them, but if we don't alternate, then we're essentially making the attacks from one of those skills less than the other. With Charge Dash, we're not really looking to do a ton of damage with it. That's not really the purpose. The purpose is to apply that elemental equilibrium, and then which we can actually apply now, and to essentially get all of our minions attacking what we just attacked. So it kind of gives them direction and then gives them a damage buff. Yeah, definitely. Sorry I couldn't really give you a direct answer. The thing is, too, like, the market fluctuates so much, and a lot of it's dependent on what part of the season that you're currently in. So early season items will tend to be a bit more expensive, just because obviously the market's not as flooded with items. And as you get later on in the season, you'll start to see more reasonable prices on stuff, just because, you know, with more people playing more often, getting to higher levels, grinding more loot, there's just naturally more stuff on the market. We should have a little bit of a miniature boss fight coming up here. So basically we use our Charge Dash to apply elemental equilibrium on him, and then just let our minions do all the work. This is kind of the way that the build is more so intended to work. before, like, we were still doing a decent amount of damage with our summon Raging Spirits. But that's not really what we want to be doing. We really want to focus on our defenses and just let our minions pretty much do everything as we sit back and kind of relax. Hey man, how's it going? The Rock Breaker. Not quite sure I follow you. Seven to 10 times more expensive. So that's kind of savage. But I mean, basically the cheapest you can find is what, unless it's possible you'll find one on the market where someone hasn't asked for anything specific and you can actually just make an offer. Just make sure that when you're looking that you actually have that option checked to where it's only going to show you items of people who are online, so that way you're not making an offer to someone who's not online and basically just, you know, wasting your time. So we actually, we can just charge dash back here, and I don't really care about saving a portal scroll. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that there was a rock breaker, like, highlighted on my screen. I was super confused. Sorry about that. I completely misunderstood what you were asking. Let's see. Socket rings are always nice. Speed. We don't really need that. Don't really need it. See, we're gonna keep this gem, the Ancestral War Chief gem, because with that we can actually save, because it has 13% quality on it, so we can actually vendor it with some other gems, potentially get something good back in return. I'm a bit rusty on some of the crafting stuff, and I could be wrong on this, so someone correct me if they know the answer and I'm off base on this. But I think you can use the stone mallet in a crafting recipe to potentially craft Mjolnir. Are you running elemental equilibrium on your zombies? Most people do, just because it's a nice damage buff, so I'd assume you probably are. Let's see, was there anyone else we had to talk to here in town to turn in missions? I think that's all of them. Hey man, good luck in your looting. Always like to spread that positive RNG. Let's see, Grand Promenade, that will take us. This should take us to one of the areas we need to go to. knew it was a stone something. I've never been one to really craft those types of items just because you need to be just ridiculously stupid lucky in order to actually get them. And historically, I am not a very lucky person. I see. Yeah, Necromancer builds are nice in general. And there's a lot of different ways to run them too. I mean, not like a ridiculous amount of ways, but I mean, you can run zombies as your main, you can run skeletons, you can decide to run specters that buff your minions. Everyone already runs a golem anyways, so it's always a good idea to have one of those as well. I think we need to head up this way. I don't know the exact layouts, but you can kind of get a good idea once you start to see the map open up a little bit. Hopefully everyone survived the work week this week. And I know some Path of Exile gamers consider this game to be the devil, but I just have to ask, anyone going to be playing Season 17 of Diablo? Actually came out today, I think. Yeah, and the nice thing is, as tanky as they are, like, you can, some other things like added minion life and other nodes you can use to actually add health as well. There's a couple things you can do sometimes to supplement your maps, and I've kind of run into the same thing with my Templar. One option is always the trade market. Usually you can find someone who will sell some of the maps for a reasonable price. And then your other option is vendor recipes. So if you actually have 3 maps that are the same map that are adjacent to the map that you're trying to get, there's a good chance that it'll actually craft one of those maps for you instead. Another thing I've noticed too is if you are mapping in a party, it'll help the party leader get a lot more maps. I've noticed when I play with my friend and we run maps, I'll usually get a lot more map drops, which I think, you know, directly correlates with the difficulty and the drops being higher. But we run with strict allocation on, and it always drops me maps, and he tends to get like more of the currency items. So always keep that in mind too. You can run in a party with strict allocation, and your map drop percentage should go up from there too. Maybe we just, oh, we should probably go up those stairs over there. And there's another advantage over Flame Dash with this movement skill, is the fact that we can also teleport up to higher levels without having to have stairs. Yeah, I would say honestly, probably the only disadvantage to a Necromancer is the fact that as you progress through the game and get more summons, if you summon too many enemies, or not too many enemies, too many minions, uh, the game unfortunately starts to lag up quite a bit. I haven't run into it yet with my Necromancer here, but I mean, we're also only in Act 8, so by the time we start mapping with this character, odds are pretty high that we're going to start to see some lag, especially if we start playing in parties. Yeah, but once you get a chance, I would definitely try to run some Elemental Equilibrium. It's just a really nice, I guess it's not technically a direct damage boost since you're just lowering your enemy's resistances, because it's technically more like a curse. But you'll definitely notice your clear speed improve quite a bit. Oh, that spear hurt. Evening. Oh, are you running, is it temporal chains? That could be super useful with Necromancer builds too, slowing down everything around you. So let's see. So this chapter actually has one of my favorite boss fights in it, because essentially, like, the main goal of Act 8 is to search the Temple of Solaris and what is the other temple called? It's basically Sun and Moon. Solaris and Lunaris. You collect an item from both, and then you summon Solaris and Lunaris, and you fight them both at the same time. And I don't really know what it is about that boss fight, but it's just honestly one of my favorite boss fights in the game. Oh, temporal chains might help even the odds. So if you're lagging, at least they'll be frozen in place a little bit. But I mean, at the same time, if your build's working out for you and you're having fun with it, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Just, you know, a few pieces of information from my experience running Necromancers of just things I enjoyed doing in the past. Yeah, it's just a ton of fun. Like, it feels like a genuine chapter-ending boss fight, and it's actually like a memorable boss fight. It's memorable for the right reasons, too, because it's actually just legitimately fun to run. Like, there's some boss fights in games that, like, I remember when I was much younger, not even necessarily because they were fun, but just because they were cheap. One game that I played when I was much younger that I remember the boss fight just being ridiculous. It was the end boss fight. It was this game called Gun. I think it was a PS2 game, if I remember, and like the end boss where it's like literally a suit of armor, and the only way to beat him is like throwing this dynamite to break off his armor so you could weaken him. It was the cheapest thing I'd ever seen in a video game before in my life. I'm admittedly running into that a little bit here, where since I'm kind of trying to just zip through the level a bit quicker, I'm having a hard time differentiating some of my minions from actual enemies. So if we rip a couple times here, I wouldn't be too ridiculously surprised. Which doesn't bother me too much. Like, yeah, it sucks to lose 5% experience, but like, we're not super high level, so it's not like we're losing an hour worth of experience. We're gonna lose a few minutes. It's not a huge deal. I was watching some of the bigger Path of Exile streamers on Twitch today, this morning, and dude, when those guys rip, they're not happy at all. And it's because, I mean, they can lose an hour of progression within a matter of seconds. This should be the area we're heading up here. It's actually, I think, just a separate side mission, but that's fine. We're right up here anyways, so I don't have any problems running this. I hate those bubbles. That's the other thing that could end up ripping us here, the bubbles. This is the other thing I like about running Necromancers too, is the fact that since you're not having to worry about aim projectiles like this, you can basically run this like you're playing a bullet hell game. Just dodge everything, let your minions do all the work. Cold damage to me is the most annoying one in the game, though, just from being slowed down. Ooh. That was bad. So close to. Oof. Yeah, we're a little squishy. That leaping attack is really hurting. Just need to make sure we just don't get hit by that, period. But our skeletons finish this off. Don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. That takes care of him. We can move on now. If I'd have just summoned my skeletons in the first place. I just don't. I've been playing a trickster, a Winter Orb trickster, for flashback, and that's essentially what I've been playing when I've been off stream. And admittedly, it takes a little bit of time for me to adjust from one character to the next. charge dash feels pretty nice just because when I'm running that Winter Orb Trickster, I'm usually charging up my Winter Orb, so it feels kind of similar. It's just a lot of muscle memory. Massive Shrine. I don't think we have anything else up there. We kind of went out of our way a little bit to do that little side mission, but a lot of side missions are worth doing. The only reason why I've been skipping a lot of them on stream is just to get through the chapters a little bit quicker, because I know I do spend a decent amount of time explaining a few things and showing some things here and there. So I mean, we're definitely not trying to race through, but at the same time, I don't really want to draw out the axe any more than I already am. I even considered keeping my flame dash and running that at the same time, but it just seemed like a waste to have two movement skills like that. Yeah, we definitely need to add some more life to our gear. I was running Flame Dash before, but I honestly kind of like being able to teleport up levels and around things. Like right there kind of saved me from having to go around that whole area. Plus with Flame Dash, you're also limited to the 3 charges. Yeah, there, how's it going tonight? Yeah, I strongly considered running Flame Dash with this, but decided to socket raise Spectre with this instead. Which my Spectres actually went down earlier because they were kind of low level. Hit like a brick wall. Jeweler's Orb, that's a nice little drop. So from here, there should be one other entrance for us. Should take us towards the temple that we need to go to. The little blue icon, that's a hideout. We could go in there and kill everything in there to unlock a new hideout, but it's literally just like a skin. If you have one hideout, you don't need any of the others. It's just it's really preference if there's one that you really like that you want to unlock. I'm pretty sure I have that one unlocked technically already anyways, because I'm pretty sure I've run that one with my Templar. And I don't really mind Flame Dash, to be honest with you. I actually, if I can't use Shield Charge, Flame Dash is actually a lot of the times my second go-to. It's kind of the cool thing about movement skills is a lot of them have their positives and their negatives, and it becomes more of a preference than anything else. With this, I'm also running Fortify, just like I would on a Shield Dash, just for that defensive layering. Because a lot of the times we are going to be running directly into, you know, a group of enemies, so it just helps to have that little bit of, you know, physical defense. I think my Templar is currently only on like tier 9 or 10. I just haven't had a lot of time to play him. Because when Flashback League came out, I made my Trickster, and then for the streams I always use my Witch, so having 3 characters has kind of limited my progress a little bit, but I don't mind. It's helped me shake off the rust a little bit from when I played on PC, playing 3 different characters. So I feel like I'll be better prepared for the next league. Let's see if we can head in the right direction here. Shouldn't be too much longer until we find out more about the next league. So I think we only have, what, 2 weeks left of Synthesis? Yeah, it's about maybe closer to 3. But it's exciting. I'll end up making a video too when the next league does come out of basically how to manage your stash, especially with me having 3 different characters. Granted, my Templar and my Witch both share stash, so that won't be so bad. But my Flashback character, because Flashback is technically a different league, so I'll have to integrate the stash that he has with the stash that these 2 characters have. So I'll definitely make a video that'll kind of help people out with that. If you do only have 1 build for, you know, this current season, or if all your builds are sharing a stash, so basically if you didn't play Flashback and you just played Synthesis, and you didn't have like any hardcore or solo self-found characters, so basically if you played all your characters in the same league, it's not going to be too difficult for you. You're just going to have, you know, all of your stash move over to standard. But if you have characters in a few different leagues, things will be a bit more complicated when everything moves over to standard, but a lot of it's just a matter of managing your stash tabs correctly. I'll be able to give a great example because I have a lot of stash tabs and I keep way too much stuff. So hopefully that video will be helpful for quite a few people who are wondering what will happen with all their stash once the next season starts, or the next league starts, excuse me. I've got season on the brain since the new season of Diablo started. I'm kind of tempted to play it too. Just because I've mentioned it before, like, I don't hate Diablo by any means. I still think it's a good game. I just think Path of Exile is an excellent game. And don't get me wrong, the console version, and I mean even the PC version, it has its flaws. And there's definitely some stuff they need to work on improving, but you know, there's no such thing as a perfect game. But I think for the most part, GGG takes steps in the right direction with Path of Exile. Like, I know a good majority of the PC player base wasn't super fond of Synthesis League. I think that's a big part of the reason as to why, unlike, you know, Betrayal and the bestiary stuff with Einhar, they're not adding Synthesis to the core game once the league is done. So keep that in mind also over the next few weeks for all of your fractured items and everything. These next few weeks are going to be your only time to actually use those items. So, you know, the synthesizer, it's, you know, from my understanding, if synthesis isn't going to be added to standard play, that synthesizer is going to be gone once the league ends. So if you've been saving up some fractured items to do some crafting with, make sure to finish that before the season's over. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting there with some fractured items. Now, granted, at some point they may integrate, you know, some sort of the synthesis content in the future, but I know there's no immediate plans to have any of it be a part of the main game. So just make sure you're not wasting your storage space on, you know, stuff you wanted to craft that you essentially get, you know, stuck with what basically are half-assed items at the end of the season. Now, granted, I've seen some great fractured items, so if you've got some good stuff that, you know, you don't want to do anything with, you by no means have to. So, I mean, it's definitely possible to still, you know, roll good affixes on fractured items. I periodically pick up more stash tabs. I wouldn't feel bad. Do it all the time. This game definitely promotes being a pack rat. I get kind of burned out on Diablo 3 as well. Like, I stopped playing it for quite a while. And then I started playing again when the Nintendo Switch version came out. Just because, you know, I wanted to have an ARPG I could play on the go. Like, I have family that is an hour and a half away. And, you know, just for, like, long car rides and stuff. Or when I took my trip to Florida, it was nice having my Switch for that also. For me, it's what Nintendo did with the Switch is like what I always wanted out of my Game Boy when I was a kid. You know, to be able to play, you know, really good full-length games on a portable console. It's just really cool. Plus, the Switch version lets you play as Gandalf, so... not Gandalf, Ganondorf. It's not Lord of the Rings, it's Legend of Zelda. Yeah, doing greater riffs as Ganondorf is pretty fun. Thanks, man, and actually thank you guys for, you know, making that happen. Obviously, you can't have subs without subscribers. And yeah, hitting 1,000 is, dude, it's awesome. Like, when I started making these videos, it was essentially just something I wanted to do that, you know, I hoped I'd be able to help a handful of people out, and it just kind of grew, and yeah, it's been an awesome experience. I've had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, there was a person in the comment section of one of my streams who wasn't particularly thrilled that I was talking about and making fun of Diablo Immortal, but, you know, some people won't mind it. Like, if people like it, that's fine. I just don't think I will. I'm not really one for mobile games in general. That's just me, though. Obviously, the market's there, and plenty of people do enjoy stuff like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't make stuff like that. But I mean, for me, like, the only mobile games I've ever really played a lot of have been just, like, card games. And Pokemon Go. Everyone played that at some point. If you didn't, you're lying to yourself. Maybe not everyone, but definitely seemed to be a pretty huge craze for a while. This map is torture. It's so open. To figure out where we're actually supposed to go here. That's something I need to personally work on, is learning the different layouts that can spawn for these maps. That's where we started. I will say the one exception to the rule for me for mobile games, though, I actually, even though I never played PUBG on console, for a shooter on a mobile platform, I thought they actually did a pretty good job. I tried playing Fortnite mobile, and it felt like torture. Basically felt like trying to play a shooter if someone tied 10-pound weights to your thumbs. But at the same time, like, I typically get genre burnout for a lot of games, and right now my genre burnout's with shooters. So yeah, right now, even in my free time when I'm not streaming or working or doing the family thing, I'm typically still not playing any shooters. I think a part of that, subconsciously, I'm making sure that when Borderlands 3 comes out, I'm actually like wanting to play it. Because I've always enjoyed looters in general. I think there's just something about always having that carrot to chase that just makes games more interesting for me. Which, I mean, is probably one of my favorite elements of Path of Exile. Just having those randomly generated maps for endgame. They're just a ridiculous amount of replayability. Like, and you can, get a decent amount of time just out of the main story. Granted, we've been running this Let's Play stream at a relatively slow pace for a lot of these different acts. Admittedly, if you kind of focus on exactly what you're doing and just make it a goal to kind of speed through everything, even with not having played the game a whole ton, you could probably still get through a majority of the game in, I mean, honestly, probably 6 to 8 hours, even if you're not super experienced at the game. Let's see, so we have that. Let's go. We'll just portal back to town. They'll give us a chance to get rid of some items, and then we can use one of our waypoints to go back through. But like the guys who are a bit more experienced, know a lot of the map layouts, and actually do like the racing, a lot of those guys can finish the main acts 1 through 10 in like 4 to 5 hours. So I mean, anywhere between, honestly, like 6 to 10 is probably a good barometer to go by for, you know, just like an average player.
So you found them. No.
Admittedly, we're going to spend a bit more time than that on this playthrough. Let's see. Mana cost, we don't really care a whole lot about that. That's actually what we'll take, though. We're not going to use any of those. That's actually a pretty decent little life belt. Don't think we'll use it right now, but we'll definitely hold on to it. One thing that's been kind of impressive is the fact that I've stuck a few things in this stash tab, but for the most part, we've run this playthrough with one stash tab. One stash tab, we haven't used the market once. I'm honestly just going to get rid of that. Oh, forgot to sell that item. That ring I'm holding on to, just because when I do go to summon specters, if there's a specific specter I want to summon from like an earlier act, I can always summon it, just one of them, and then go into a later act where the enemy levels are a bit higher, and equip that ring so I have Desecrate and can summon corpses, and then that'll allow me to summon a higher level of that that specter. So we should be ready to... We went to Lunaris, so we'll have to go to Solaris now. So that's the other side of the toxic conduits. I've had to work really hard not keeping stuff in this playthrough. I've kind of just told myself that really the only thing I need to collect a lot of is currency. With my Templar, I've collected so many of the different skill gems that by the time these characters get transferred over to Standard, I'm essentially just going to be looking at duplicates. So I just keep telling myself that, you know, in the long run, this is going to just make life easier. God, remember when our zombies were dying all the time? I can't remember the last time I actually had to summon one. I actually haven't even been summoning our Vol skeletons, like, at all. I did at the end of that boss fight when I forgot to run them the whole time. But other than that, we've had them sidelined. Our zombies have just been doing a ton of work. Between our Holy Relic, our Golem, and our zombies. We just haven't really even needed those skeletons. Just make sure... Yeah, we headed in the right direction. Just backtrack in that area for no reason. I will say the one thing that'll make it easier for you to run less stash tabs in a regular playthrough, though, is if you have a currency tab. Like, whenever people ask me what the one tab I think is worth buying is, I always say currency tab first. Because when you think about it, like the amount of spaces that you would have to use in your inventory just to have, you know, a specific amount of currency is, you know, crazy compared to having a currency tab where you can stack 5,000. Because there's currency, you know, most of it only stacks and stacks at 40, and some of it will only stack and stacks at 20. So being able to put it in a stack of 5,000, that's just, it's crazy. So, if anyone does end up being in the market for stash and wants to know which one they should go for first, I would definitely say always go currency tab first. Then after that, if you're trying to be cost efficient, you can always upgrade one of your normal stash tabs to a premium tab for relatively cheap, just so that way you can actually post stuff on the trade market. I mean, even just some of the rare items that I use throughout the game, I'll list them on the trade market for, you know, a fairly cheap amount. Like, I'll put them up there for, like, a Chaos Orb, or even just, like, an Orb of Fusing or two. Maybe a Jeweler's Orb early on. Just, you know, I'm not going to use the item anymore, and it may be useful to someone else who's just, you know, looking for a quick item on the market to help themselves get over the hump. So I guess my mentality on it is, if I can, you know, get a piece of useful currency for myself for my own crafting purposes, and, you know, make it reasonable for someone else to get an item that they need, that's essentially what the trade market's for anyways, at least early on. Hey Blue, how's it going tonight? I think that's one thing a lot of people don't really keep in mind about the trade market, is the fact that, you know, if you do put some items on there for reasonable prices that other people can buy and it helps them out, you know, you're helping people progress through the game. Which is, you know, upping the odds that there's going to be more people to post good items later on in the game. So, I mean, that way, you know, you could get some good trademark karma in your favor, you know. You help scratch someone's back, and who knows, later on down the road, they might have that mentality of, you know, someone posted an item for me for a decent, and you may benefit from that one day. You know, aside from racing, like, this isn't a competitive game. So, you know, help out people where you can. That's kind of my mentality on the game. I mean, you know, that's why I make the tutorial videos, help people out. Help people enjoy the game more. So this isn't actually like a main mission, but it's still fun. Let's see, we don't have the item for this. But basically we kill Tolman. Poor guy. Our actual destination is probably out here, out past Kavas, where you can kind of see him on the overhead map. You can use keywords on the trade market, which is what I'll typically do. Now, granted, the downside is the fact that it doesn't just show you those items, it highlights them. And I found out, I made a video on it, and I found out after the video, just from some experimentation, that if you put quotations around what you're actually searching for, you can actually search exact keywords. So if I you know, because the problem that I was running into earlier before using quotations is, you know, I'd type in fire, and, you know, fire, you could get fire damage, you could get fire resistance, and the fire damage you could get percentage, you could get fire damage on attacks, fire damage on spells. Like, there's so many different things that could populate there. But if you put, you know, say I wanted fire resistance and I put that in quotations, it's only gonna, you know, highlight things with fire resistance on it. But again, that literally took me just experimentation for me to figure that out. But I found it to be super useful. Because I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of people end up having about this game is they'll assume that, you know, a unique is always going to be a better option than a rare item. And there's actually a good portion of the time where that's not true. You know, you need to have a good balance of uniques and rare items. Because if you just run strictly uniques, now there are some uniques that offer some nice resistances, but you know, you're probably going to be falling flat in a lot of areas. Most of the builds, even if you're just looking up builds online, a lot of them are going to be, you know, half and half at most. And a lot of people create their builds similar to how I do, where they try and create a build that more so focuses on the passive tree and your skill gems, and then makes a lot of your items optional, to where you only have to kind of search for specific affixes on items to stack. Like with this build currently, we're running really only 1 or 2 uniques at the moment, I think. Yeah, it's just these gauntlets, and the only reason why I just haven't replaced these gauntlets is because of the fact that these charges actually get applied to our zombies and all of our other minions as well. So that's really the only reason I've kept those around as long as I have. Just because charges can be just stupid powerful. But we are getting to the point where I probably will end up replacing them with a rare, just to probably buff my defenses a bit more, to be honest. Our resistances aren't too terrible. If you look at our character here, I mean, I've got lightning and fire maxed out already. Cold is a bit low, which is why we struggled in that one side boss fight. But you also have to keep in mind that after Act 10, we're going to run into another huge resistance penalty. So at that point, we'll probably be looking to replace those gloves for sure, to add some more resistances, some more health. I'm going to drop for us over here, Orb of Fusing. And potentially some more energy shield, just for, you know, more defense. Yeah, the cool thing about Elder and Shaper items too is the fact that they'll roll a random affix that you can't typically get on an item of that type. And you can also use them to help you get exalted shards, which, by the way, anyone who saw my video today, I misspoke without thinking while making that video. When I was talking about the recipe for exalted, it gives exalted shards and not direct orbs. And the shards work the same as any other shards in the game. You collect enough shards and then you actually get a full orb. But that was brought to my attention. So I'll end up putting some captions in that video. Because unfortunately YouTube doesn't let you actually like edit a video after it's been listed. So what I end up doing when something like that happens and I just kind of admittedly mess up, I'll try and put a caption that's forced on the screen at that area just to kind of, you know, correct, so that way there's not misinformation getting out, because that's obviously the last thing I want to do is misinform. Everything else about that video, though, is 100% accurate, so the recipe, the vendor recipe I talk about for getting Chaos Orbs and Regal Orbs, that's all 100% accurate. I just misspoke about the one for Exalted Orbs. I said orbs instead of shards, which may not sound like a huge difference, but it definitely is. Nothing good out of that strong box at all. Actually, I think my gut's telling me to go up here. The other thing I actually noticed, earlier I had mentioned that I had watched a few of the larger PC streamers earlier this morning on Twitch. I actually didn't realize how much larger the streaming audience is on Twitch compared to YouTube. When I looked this morning, there were 31 people total watching Path of Exile streams, while Twitch had around 10,000 people watching streams. I've pretty much just streamed on YouTube because, you know, that's where, you know, everyone knows me from. So I kind of, you know, had an audience to present to already, whereas on Twitch I just haven't done Twitch yet. So I didn't really know what to expect. So I guess I just kind of stayed in my comfort zone there. And I mean, most of the time, you know, streaming on YouTube will have between, you know, anywhere between, you know, 10 and 20 something concurrent viewers at the same time, which if there's only 30 some people watching streams, yep, that's pretty awesome. I'm, you know, glad you guys come in and watch. At some point here, though, what I may end up doing is probably moving the streams over to Twitch and kind of taking a chance over there. And then just continuing to, you know, make all the tutorial videos and everything here on YouTube. Potentially like uploading things from the streams over on Twitch over here to YouTube. Like possibly just highlights, or, you know, if there's enough people who just kind of strictly watch YouTube as opposed to Twitch, maybe uploading the whole stream. I think highlights might be a better option, though. Yeah, when I decide to do that, though, I'll definitely, I'll give some notice, and I'll definitely put my Twitch ID on the page again. Just so that way you guys can come watch over there, too. Because, I mean, the best part about a stream is actually interacting with your audience. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, so the other reason why it's not necessarily ideal to turn those Elder and Shaper items in for that recipe is the fact that you're not always going to be able to strictly run Elder and Shaper maps, and you're also not going to get Elder and Shaper items nearly as often as you're going to get just your typical rare items. Just because they just don't drop as much. It's just a numbers game. So actually using your normal rare items to essentially do those, you know, the two recipes for, well, I guess end game you'd be mostly just crafting regal orbs as opposed to chaos, and then just maybe using the trade market to trade for chaos orbs if you need them. You're going to be much better off, more than likely, just like you had said, keeping those those Elder and Shaper items to actually craft off of, or just essentially trade to people. And stuff like that, I feel more and more people are just going to catch on over time, just as the game is out for longer. I think, to be honest with you, I feel like a lot of people have already caught on pretty well, considering this is our first league on PS4. And granted, you know, yeah, there's plenty of veteran players from PC who moved over to PS4 just because, you know, either they're, you know, I hear a lot of stories about people's computers kind of taking a dump, and, you know, a decent computer's not exactly cheap. So once the game comes out to PS4 or console that they have, you know, they move over to console. Some people, like myself, you know, just know more people on console. And I just always preferred playing games on console anyways. I know there's a whole thing where, you know, you can make games look nicer on PC, and because of all the sales, like, it's technically cheaper on PC, but I like to just relax, you know, kick back with a controller in my hand and just have some fun that way. Plus, I think ARPGs typically run pretty well on console.
Too much clutter.
I just, you know, I like the feeling of joysticks, I guess, underneath my thumbs. And I think it also helps the fact that I work on a computer for a good portion of my day. So if I gamed on a PC all the time also, I think it'd feel like work a little bit. I guess technically there is a level of work to streaming, but it honestly doesn't really feel like it. I've had more fun doing this than anything else. I am still trying to, I've been learning a little bit about Streamlabs OBS, just so that way we can kind of add a few more fun little features to the streams. Yeah, especially the up D-pad. The up D-pad flask, I've learned that, like, I have to equip a flask that I don't intend to use all the time on that one, because it's just, it's like impossible to reach your thumb off the left stick and then hit that flask. You essentially have to claw your controller. You just really have to bend your hand awkwardly. I'm not a huge fan of it. But, I mean, to their credit, I don't know where else they would have put it. It took me a little while to get used to the fact that they make the big button your options button too. I do kind of wish they would have implemented something, though, where they would have made the big button kind of like a trackpad for your inventory, to where you could, like, scroll around with it like a mouse and then hold it down to, like, move items around in your inventory. I don't know how, like, it sounds like it could be pretty smooth. I don't know how smooth it would have been in implementation, but managing my inventory just feels a bit clunky at times. Stop spraying me, I don't like it. Oh, he's dead, Jim.
Too much clutter.
Too much crap in your inventory. If I've been randomly picking up stuff too. Like, I literally don't want any of this stuff. Thought I at least picked up one chromatic idea. I literally picked up one. Here, this will be one too. So now we have both of the orbs, Solaris and Lunaris. So we can actually go to the bridge and do our boss fight. So we'll head back into town first, get rid of some of our currency, sell off the couple of chromatic items we have, and then we will head into the big boss fight. Oh, I'm acting like I can actually just warp there from the map screen. And hopefully they live long enough for me to kind of demonstrate why I like this boss fight so much. Oh, they literally just call them the sun and moon orbs.
Come over here.
So we'll sell these off. Get our skill point. Actually, we may as well just assign these. We'll hold off on that last point for now. I just kind of wanted those damaged nodes. No, I'm not running flashback event with this character, just because I made this character before the flashback event. I did do one stream with my flashback character. It was a lot of fun. My big thing is, with this character, the whole point was to go through the game without using the marketplace, and without using any extra stash space. Just to kind of give examples, like a live example of how you can go about creating your build and crafting some items here and there when you have to, when you hit that wall. And like, I've made tutorial videos on it too, but I just find that it helps if you also get some context as to when you need to do it. And since I had started this character before the flashback event, and it's a league character, I wanted to make sure that I still finish this playthrough off. Otherwise, if we don't get through the end of this playthrough before the league ends, the character gets moved over to standard. Which, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter that much. Like, we could just continue on from there in standard, but I just didn't want to push it off. I wanted to get this playthrough, done in a decent amount of time. But once I do finish Act 10 with this character, just because of the different issues that Necromancers have with mapping, with lagging a ton when you get enough minions up, I'll probably switch the streams over to my flashback character, who is a very cookie cutter build for this league, especially on PC. I've been running a Winter Orb Trickster, which, if you haven't run Winter Orb, holy crap, is it overpowered. Yeah, man, no problem. I'm glad they've helped you out. To be totally honest, those are my favorite comments to hear. Just because my big thing was I have some experience at Path of Exile. I played for a while on PC, but I'm not a racer. I'm not a top tier player. I'm not. There's a guy named Ziz who plays on PC, and that guy knows the game like the back of his hand. I don't have that level of knowledge to where I know a ton of stuff about every item in the game, but I feel like with the level of knowledge I have that it's easier for me to explain kind of the basic concepts a bit more than someone who's super advanced in the game, just because there's a lot of knowledge that they're going to assume that everyone has that you just don't have when you first start the game. There's a lot to the game, so you do have to break a lot of it down on more simpler terms. And I just felt like my level of knowledge with the game was in a good place to be able to do that. I haven't forgotten what it was like when I first started playing the game. I remember a lot of the things that I found confusing, a lot of the things that, I struggled with when I first started playing, and a lot of the things that I've had to pick up over time. Trickster has a skill node in his ascendancy tree to where charge skills will actually generate charges. So that's why I prefer it for Winter Orb, because you're also generating charges as you're moving around with Winter Orb. So your crit chance is higher, and you have a higher chance to evade, I believe it is, with the charges it produces. But I mean, Winter Orb Elementalist is also ridiculously strong. Like, Winter Orb is just a great skill. I pair it with Ice Spear and just mow through everything. Trickster also has a node in his ascendancy tree to where you can use movement skills at no cost. So what a lot of people do is they'll equip Leap Slam, and they'll literally just Leap Slam across the whole map while continuing their Winter Orb. I haven't picked up that node yet, so what I've been doing is I've been using Flame Dash, and then I paired that with God, I'm trying to remember what I paired it with. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank for some reason, and I'll think of it like later on. But essentially, I paired it with, I forget what the skill is called, but essentially you spend a certain amount of mana, and you end up getting a 10% increase to your spell damage if you spend that amount of mana. And I have the gem at just the right level to where basically I dash once and I get that buff. Crafting comes with time. There's not really, in my opinion anyways, there's no big secrets to crafting. You just have to do it more. And a lot of crafting is RNG. There's ways to circumvent it. You can always fossil craft, which helps out a lot. Which is another, great roll-off 5-link. Which is another great reason to delve, so you can get what you need to fossil craft. Here we are. So this is going to be our final boss fight here for Act 9. So this is, honestly, this might be my favorite boss fight in the game. It's just the fact that there's so much going on. Like, you need 2 of your elemental resistances to be decent. It's just, it's a very multi-dimensional boss fight. Like right there, we got hit pretty hard. Ooh, we just were out of the range of that projectile. Like, as long as you're smart with your movement, like, it's not necessarily a hard boss fight. Just a few tricky things you'll run into every now and again. Oof. We almost met our maker right there. But we're almost through it. I think we already killed Solaris. Lunaris is almost down too. Yep, there we go. Whirling Blades is really good too. That's one of those things where you just need a good movement skill, which is usually just dependent on what weapons you have equipped too. Yeah, fossil crafting will be awesome for a 6-link. Because basically it's going to let you pick specific affixes that can and can't appear when you're crafting. And, you know, obviously there's still going to be a level of RNG that's involved with that, but, you know, your probability is much, much better to actually get affixes that you want. So that's going to leave us into Act 9. I think that's probably where we'll finish off the stream, just because I've been trying to basically do, like, 1 act per stream. There's been a couple times we've kind of dug a bit deeper in. This week, though, admittedly, from me being sick, my voice has just been giving in a little sooner on in the streams than I'd like. So I think, yeah, we'll close it up here. Thanks again for stopping in, though, you guys. I really appreciate it. I mean, you guys are the reason why I do these streams, why I make the videos. The support from you guys has been awesome, and I just have a lot of fun doing these streams with you and, you know, making the tutorial videos. It's just a lot of fun for me. I really enjoy the game, and honestly, getting to help people with the different tutorial videos and just getting to chat with people during the streams, it's honestly just heightened my enjoyment of the game. And absolutely, I love answering questions when I can. I just, you know, I enjoy helping out the community in this game, and from my experience, the community that I've been involved with has been very positive, very supportive, and, you know, I like to show that positivity and that support right back. So thanks again, guys, for sticking it out tonight with me and coming in for the stream. I hope you guys will join me again on Monday. We've only got a couple of chapters left on this character, and then, like I said, we'll probably I'll get my flashback character ready and probably do some playthroughs with people. So if you guys have flashback characters that are to the point of mapping, I'm sure a lot of people do. I'm still getting mine there. I only have, I think, another act left to go with my flashback character. Running 3 characters kind of kills my progress a little bit. But if you have a character ready, pop into the stream, and if there's an open spot for you, we'll play a bit together. I know it's not something I've done with the community yet, but it's something I've had a definite desire to do, so we will definitely do some community play events in future streams once we've finished our initial playthrough. So I hope everyone has a great night. Have an awesome weekend, you guys, and until next time, may the RNG be with you, always.